When there's a high-performance car to review for CarGurus, generally it comes my way. So when I was asked to review an electric car, I thought, ooh, a Tesla Model S or a Porsche Taycan Turbo, but no, it's a Renault Zoe. Back to the car in a moment, but first, have you subscribed to the CarGurus YouTube channel yet? Go on, tap that subscribe button. The Zoe has been around since 2012, but it's just been updated. It's got a bigger battery and therefore more range, and it's also got a new cabin and updated exterior styling as well. Whereas the previous Zoe used a 41 kilowatt-hour battery, this new version has a 52 kilowatt-hour battery. It sits across the floor of the car where it doesn't impinge at all on cabin space. Mounting the battery low down also helps keep the centre of gravity low, which is great for handling. Of course, what you really want to know about is range. When this car arrived on a truck at my house with a full battery, the range readout said 248 miles. That's about right. The official WLTP number is 245 miles. That's about 30% more than the previous version of the Zoe. Now, range in an electric car really does depend on all sorts of factors, such as how hard you accelerate, and also cold weather. Those things can see your range come down quite sharply. The other key thing to know about is charging, where you can do so and how long it'll take. Zoe buyers are offered installation of a home charging box free of charge. Plugged into that, the Zoe will charge from empty to full in 8.5 hours. This test car has a 50 kilowatt rapid charge option, which costs £750. Plug into a compatible public charger, there are thousands across the country, and you'll get a 50% charge in 38 minutes, enough for another 120 miles of driving. First thing you notice when you get inside is actually how high you're sitting. If you're anything like me, you'll spend the first couple of minutes of every journey searching for a lever to lower the seat that you know isn't there. That's because the batteries are spread out across the floor, so you're effectively sat on top of them, and that explains why you sit higher than you do in a conventional car. It's a good, airy, spacious cabin, this, spacious in the front at least. Rear seat space can be a little bit tight, but it feels like a good quality cabin. Quite familiar Renault stuff if you already drive a Renault. A lot of this switchgear will be familiar to you. I like these minor controls here. But why does this button say start engine? The dashboard is dominated by the large touchscreen, although from the driver's seat you notice the fully digital instrument display first. The infotainment system is easy to use, the menu being clearly laid out and intuitive to navigate. This particular car is a high-spec model. That means it gets the more powerful 134 horsepower motor, as well as lots of safety and convenience kit. There's Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, wireless phone charging and a reversing camera. It also gets this part recycled, part synthetic leather, which I'm kind of undecided on. Now this is a top spec GT line Zoe. That means it costs about £29,000, and that's if you're buying the batteries rather than leasing them, and that's also after the government grant for EVs. The Zoe range actually starts at about £26,500. So what's the Renault Zoe actually like to drive? Of course, it's in its element in town, where I think actually it works really well. The visibility is good, it rides pretty well, but it just feels so smooth. There are no gear changes because there are no gears, and it just feels effortless. I particularly like, at very low speeds, the mandatory sound that it makes, a bit like an alien spaceship coming into land. It's a woo-woo-woo kind of sound. You lose it over 20 miles an hour or something. In town, this thing is really cool to drive. There are two things you can do to tease out just a little more range, particularly when driving in town or on a country road. The first is to hit this button here, Eco, and the moment you do so, you feel how much less acceleration you have when you touch the throttle pedal. But the car doesn't become tediously slow. It's not as though you get swamped by traffic in Eco mode, and then when you push through the soft throttle stop, you get full performance anyway. The second thing you can do is to knock the drive selector lever into B. That's for regenerative braking, and so when the car is slowing down, it inverts the motor and that charges the battery. So slowing down just puts a little bit of charge back into the battery. It's not the most sort of forceful regenerative braking system that I've come across, but even so, in town in particular, there is enough retardation when you lift off the accelerator pedal to slow the car down, and actually it will slow the car down all the way to a stop. So it becomes a bit of a challenge then. Can you drive through town without touching the brakes even once?
Perhaps the most surprising thing about the Zoe is that it's actually pretty fun to drive, whether you're in town or on a B-road.
I mean, it's all relative. This is no electric hot hatch. But even so, and particularly if you're not in eco mode, put your foot down and you get a real rush of acceleration, particularly from very low speeds. Enough acceleration actually to leave most normal cars standing at the lights, I would say. What about everything else? Well, the steering is much sharper than I thought it would be. It's really accurate. And the handling is actually pretty keen. It's pretty agile and responsive, partly because the center of gravity is so low in the car. All of that stuff makes this Zoe quite amusing to drive.
You'll have to decide if an electric car is right for you, but with a range of up to 250 miles or so and the option of 50 kilowatt charging, the Zoe would work just fine for the majority of drivers.
Now, the best part of £30,000, the Renault Zoe doesn't exactly come cheap, although you could offset your monthly payments with your massively reduced fuel bills. But best of all, the Zoe is characterful and it's good to drive as well. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the CarGurus YouTube channel if you haven't already, and remember as well to head to cargurus.co.uk where you'll find a great deal on your next used car from a top-rated dealer.